Okay, hello and welcome to the second book review chat that I'm doing with Christina Lord from Authentic Action Coaching. How are you doing, Christina?
I'm really good, thank you, Paul. Happy Monday.
Thank you. Happy Monday to you as well. So the last one, well, the first one that we did, that's had quite a decent number of views so far. I think it's just under 100, and we did it about The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Nice pronunciation.
Yeah. I've been checking it out. I've been watching it. There's lots of really weird pronunciations, but I think that is the correct one. I think that's how he pronounces his name. So anyway, I'm sticking with it. So we decided for the second one we do a book called Feck Perfuction.
Oh, you've got your magazine too.
Feck Perfuction by James Victore.
Yes.
Yeah. So Feck Perfuction by James Victore, and the subtitle is Dangerous Ideas on the Business of Life.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
it's
and then
fantastic.
Bit of a blurb. I'll just read this out. So it's James Victore is a designer for bold believers, an advocate for creativity, and an artist whose work has been exhibited in New York's Museum of Modern Art. He lectures and teaches regularly around the globe, and he lives, loves, and works in Texas. Okay, so why have we picked this book? Because this was your idea.
It was because this was a recommendation that you've had before from another coach, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So yeah. It was a friend of mine, Michael Owen, who's a designer, but he'd actually met James Victore at there's a thing called the Do Lectures.
I didn't know that.
So basically the founder of, have you heard of Howie's Jeans? Yeah, the founder of
Rings a bell.
And various other clothing brands. He runs it's kind of like a retreat, an annual retreat for creatives in Wales, in Cardigan. So it's on his farm. And James Victore has done some work with the Do Lectures. So they publish books and they do these annual events where they get amazing speakers and designers and creators from around the world who all come together. I think there's it's limited to 150 people come to the event every year, and they all stay in tents and teepees or something and come away feeling, they're usually at a bit of a crossroads in their life. I think people who go to it, and then they'll come away with some revelation about how they're going
to creatively recharged.
Exactly. And James is one of the guys that Michael had heard speak, and so he's been talking to me about James for about 2 years, and I have wanted to read the book, but it just goes to show that sometimes you need several reminders before you finally do it. And it was you actually tagged me into a video that James had done on Instagram, and when I watched the video, I was like, yeah, this guy's amazing. I'm definitely, and I bought the book straight after watching the video. So James, keep doing your videos if you watch it.
No, exactly. Well, it's funny because I got told about James by a guy who I used to go to university with. So I studied graphic design, creative imaging at the time in Huddersfield, and so I obviously still keep in touch with a lot of my friends that are now working in the creative industry. And one particular friend who's a creative director sent me a link to James Victore's videos. And this is another thing we can actually put down to lockdown, that many authors have been going onto Instagram and Facebook and actually reading from their book. So that's what James has been doing. And what I love about that, he's such a character, isn't he? I mean, he's just...
I like the way he puts his glasses down. He's got glasses on his head. He's got a great mustache as well. He's got
he has. I was going to say, like, just show people. That's the bottom half of his face. But he does have a great mustache. Yes, he does.
Yeah. So he has his glasses on top of his head, and then he's going, "Hey, James Victore, what did he say?
Oh, I can't remember his spiel of like your like favorite author. Like he just puts it all out there. Like he's so just charismatic, but just you can tell he's a bit of a rule breaker. Hence, this book is very much like his. It's quite unorthodox in a way, but it's life lessons. Yeah. And I think it is. I mean, it's primarily, I guess you could say, for creatives, but actually in that respect, we're all creative. We all create stuff, don't we? Whether it be writing, music, projects, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
I like the way, I like the way when he reads it, he put his glasses on and then he takes a deep breath, either like just as he's about to go in, and then he'll like read it, and then he'll like say something about it. But no, he's a great guy to. Well, the book is great. We'll talk about that, but definitely recommend following him on Instagram in particular,
Yes.
where he's doing some great videos. I actually watched a live video that he did last night, which was really entertaining. So yes, but did you know about him beforehand or not? Had you?
Yeah, well, so like as I say, it was a friend from university that put me onto him via Instagram. So before that, so that was maybe a year ago. So I hadn't heard of him before that. And as soon as I kind of looked at, and I'm sure I've maybe come across the book cover before, because that's quite a standout cover, isn't it? I mean,
the title as well.
Pretty notice it, and the title as well. And that is the preferred way of saying the F word for me. It's a bit of an Irish slant on it. But one of the things actually that I've kind of circled to just share with people, Danielle Laporte has written this amazing foreword to the book that James himself read out. And I just loved some of it that she kind of signaled in this, because she was talking about, because you can't make art without an opinion. And that's something that we're going to go on and talk about. And so James is very clear about have an opinion. Like, don't be just this mediocre, vanilla in a sea of ice cream flavors. Like, don't blend in, stand out, stand up for something. And she said you can't teach the world anything without shattering your assumptions. So it's kind of almost this dangerous creativity, is this chaos of mixing things up, stirring things up. And that for me is like the slight danger of it, that it's meant to cause a reaction. Like anything that we do, why just do it so it kind of blends in with everybody else? I mean, all messages are different, but this is very much clear about, actually, if you've got something to say it, and stand in your weirdness, which is a big thing that he talks about too. But the thing that I want to specifically highlight, which I really, really loved, was Victore believes that normalcy is barbed wire to the human spirit. And I just, the way that she's worded that is just, and questions are our wire cutters. So it's that curiosity that actually we can break free from this normalcy. And that's how we evolve and grow, right, as a society. Yeah,
definitely. Well, the book's full of stuff like that, isn't it? I mean, it's like the chapter titles, it's all like, your parents were wrong, have a damn opinion, the things that made you weird as a kid made you great today. Creativity is dangerous, you ain't weird, you're free. Freedom is something you take. There ain't no rules. The struggle is everything. I mean, we can talk about all these, but yeah, they're all deliberately, I guess, kind of slightly provocative, but not really. Like when you
thought-provoking.
Thought-provoking, yeah. Because I don't know about you, but like when I read it, like I feel like I've already stepped into this other world, right? But this is, I talked about this actually. I don't know if you ever watched Harry Potter.
I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan, I must admit. I've seen like a few, but I've not because I think you either like love it or
yeah. Well, have you heard of Diagon Alley?
Yes.
So Diagon Alley is this weird alleyway with all the shops and stuff. But I think sometimes the world is like Diagon Alley, right? You've got your wizards and your witches and your creatives and your entrepreneurs who are walking amongst the muggles, right? So most people are muggles, right?
I'm liking this analogy, okay.
They're kind of they're blinkered to, like, this is the way this is meant to be. But if you just step a little bit to the other side, there's a whole other world of magic and creativity.
Yeah, I know there is.
Once you look a bit closer and you step into it, because until you make that step, you think, oh, that sounds so hard to do that, to start your own business or be entrepreneurial or be creative, but actually it's literally just a couple of steps
Yeah.
to decide.
No, I love that. And what resonates and what picks to me, and I think it mentions it in here, is like being in the herd. And that's, I remember feeling, and it probably started for me about 6 years ago when I just kind of got to that place of like, is this it? Like, there's got to be more to life than this. You know, that whole thing of like, you're hustling, you're pushing, you're climbing that ladder, whatever it is for you. And then you tick all of the boxes and then you get there and you go, and so it's when you kind of come out of the herd and actually travel in different crowds and come across different people that go, oh my, like people live like this, people like live outside of like, you know, different ways of living. Because I think sometimes you can, especially if you're surrounded by people that are all very similar, it kind of tricks you into thinking that that is the world, but it isn't. So it's, I like the analogy that you've used.
No, it is. That's why it's important to surround yourself with, choose your friends carefully, and people surround yourself, because it is difficult if no one around you has stepped outside of the norm to make that change, because people don't generally like it when you go against the grain. And
well, and I think that's the truth in terms of, and we touched on it last time when we talked about The Alchemist, which is very much around, you know, people often project their fears onto you. So if you're doing something different and it makes them feel uncomfortable, then chances are they'll try and talk you out of it, because it almost like highlights that their life isn't what it should be often. And so I think that's quite an interesting one in itself. The other thing that came up for me as you were talking was one of the standout memories of me really looking at life differently. And I mean, I a lot of the time do go back to my travels, but I was there was a certain part of my journey, I was in Peru, and I was staying in this village that were outside near where Machu Picchu is, and I checked into this hostel and this American woman was at the desk. So my Spanish isn't great, so I was talking to her. Anyway, she then invited me to go to the market because she was going there later on in the day. So I thought, oh, brilliant, you know, orientate where I am, because I was there on my own. And I always remember she said to me, they call me the Wandering Waitress. And I was like, okay. She was from the Midwest in America. She had been divorced and her daughter had grown up and gone away to college. And she just got to this point where she said, you know what, I want to see the world. And so she's been basically traveling around South America for I think the last 6 months during the time that I met her. And she said, yeah, they call me the Wandering Waitress because that's my background. And I just, I'm with Workaway. And she just said, I trade my time for accommodation and I just wander around South America. And I just remember thinking, what? Like, is that a thing? And then I remember then looking up, you know, Workaway and thinking, oh, okay, so people do that. People live that way. It's possible. But it just blew my mind at the time, because that's not something that I've ever considered. Yeah,
exactly. Well, there's so many different ways to work and get by, and as long as you've got enough to get by. And
well, but again, it's all different levels. So this whole thing for me of, you know, and it's a kind of segue into, you know, the first chapter that James talks about, which is, you know, your parents are wrong. And it's not that they're all wrong, but they are indoctrinated with their background, and often they are wired to keep you safe and make sure that you prosper and that you survive, essentially, but thrive. But the thing is, each generation evolves past the next. And so what was, you know, new and a bit back then may not be now. So I think it's allowing your children to be who they be in the world that is today.
Yeah. I wonder about that, because I'm such a cool dad. Like, I don't know, like...
Yeah, it doesn't compute, does it, with you? Because you're fully there, allowing.
Yes, but I'm not cool to my kids.
I bet you are.
Well, reluctantly, I don't know. I think they've started reluctantly saying I'm quite good at what I do. But yeah, my son's really into. He's got his own YouTube channel, so he watched a video the other day and he was like, "You're actually quite good, aren't you?" So that was,
Oh, very good thing. Oh well, you've made it once your children say that.
but yeah, so we'll just talk a bit more about the. I mean, he's got a very distinctive style, hasn't he? Like he's.
He has.
Is there a proper name for it? I mean, it's all very kind of like.
I suppose it's graffiti. It's kind of, it's got a graffiti feel to it. It's just very marker, very bold, very, you know.
Like
Yeah.
kind of handwriting over the top of photography, actually.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of that, but some of it's just very striking, isn't it? Like those kind of things. And that's the classic thing of a picture paints 1,000 words.
Yeah. Well, it says, I think I read about it. So, I mean, he started off as a poster designer. That's what he wanted to be. So that was his first poster. So it was he just scribbled over the top of a picture of a, what do you call it?
Native American.
Native American with a bit of a provocative message on there. Because it was meant to be a bit of a challenge against the celebration of America's, well, the history of America.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's quite, in some ways, it's quite simple, but that's the hard.
That's the beauty of it, I think, that it's so simple that he doesn't try. Yeah. It's got this rawness to it, I think. Yeah,
and you can just immediately get the message in quite a few words and just very, very few things on the.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of what he talks about is disruption. It's disrupting the norm, isn't it? So it's very marker-esque, it's bold, it's in your face, it's not from anyway how he's done in the book. And then that describes very much, I mean, the chapter 1's all about your voice and really challenging and just for people, I mean, it was really, really short because each chapter has this prelude, doesn't it, which is really short and sweet, and it says a lot. So the chapter here is, your voice is who you are. Maybe not the you that you carry around every day, but the one yelling from inside, demanding to be heard. Your voice is the way you see the world and how you translate it back. When you train your voice and allow it to grow and be heard, that beautiful sound will carve the path for you to follow for your life. And then he said, conversely, if you fail to use your voice, others will be in charge of it and be in charge of you. Never give in, never surrender. Your voice is your most powerful tool. And that's like a call to arms. That's where it starts, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great way to start the book because, well, we've all got our own unique voice, our own unique ideas and thoughts on the world. So yeah, so how do you want to use it? How do you find your voice, and how do you? And it doesn't necessarily mean like a spoken voice. You know, it could be just in the work you do. It could, you could quietly get on with what you do. But the other thing I like about what he talks about is he talks about signing his work as well, putting his signatures on the work that he's proud of. So I think someone taught him that, and he does that now. So if it's something that he's proud of, he'll always put his signature on it. I like the idea of that if it's from the heart and it's authentic and you really believe in what you've done, put your signature on it. Yeah,
because a lot of this it's about his own approval, isn't it? It's not seeking validation externally. I think a lot of actually, no, I have a voice, I believe in this, and like you say, if it's from the heart, then he'll put his stamp of approval by his weird signature on there. So
yeah, on that as well. I mean, I think you know, probably bore you talking about it, but I used to make music years ago in another life, right? But my best music was when I wasn't making it for anyone else. It was when I was just doing it for myself. Yeah. And even now, when I listen to it, I'm like, that was fucking good. And like, but I wasn't trying to like where my weaker stuff is when I was trying to be successful. You know, when I was like, I was just playing. Like creativity, playfulness. I was doing it because I wanted to do it and I wanted to express myself. Yeah. And yes, I wanted other people to listen to the music, and then I did get some records signed, and it led on from there, right? But for me, it was more about I want to make some music that's uniquely mine. I want to express myself through my music, and then I want to be able to play that music when I'm DJing. So that's my own unique sound. But then once I'd had a bit of success through that, I started trying to repeat that success, and not necessarily being formulaic, but thinking, oh, right, okay, well, let's try and recreate what I've done there. And it did work to a point, but it wasn't as good. So I don't, when I listen to it now, that's some of my least favorite stuff when I was trying to do that. And that's not just music, it's other stuff that I've done over the years as well, when I've tried to follow the rules or like be successful instead of just being completely free.
No, I think that's a really good example to make, because, and I think, you know, musically, like you say, when you're expressing yourself, creating anything, it's, you feel inspired, called to create. Whereas I think, and James talks about a lot of this in the book, doesn't he, that actually the pressure comes when suddenly you're attached to an outcome, because that's when the pressure comes on, because then suddenly you've got to kind of work towards something, and you know you're going to get judged. Whereas I think if you're just in this playful state, like you say, of just like playful, open flow creation, then that's, I always think of it as a channel. So I think it's almost like a divine download from the universe, that if you're most playful and open, then that's when the channel is at its biggest, like its widest, and it showers down on you. But the moment you bring in, oh, it's for that, or there's your deadline, or there's your aim, then that's when the channel like can close off suddenly, and our power can be taken away.
Yeah. I watched, I can't remember who it was, I watched another short video of an animator talking about this. He was saying sometimes you just can't find the motivation or the inspiration. Like he was doing some stickman animation, he was just like, it was pretty boring, but then he hit on this other idea, and he said, I was just so in the zone and in the flow state that hours went by and I was just enjoying that. And he was saying, but what I thought was interesting about him, he said there's two kind of ways to do that. Some it's just for the pure enjoyment of it, but he said weirdly sometimes when he worked for an animation studio, sometimes having a boss telling you, if he understood that it was part of a bigger thing, that it was part of a bigger project, and he was doing his bit, which actually had a purpose to it. He could get motivation from that, knowing that he was playing his role in that bigger,
his part. Yeah, so it wasn't all on him, but he was a collaborator. Yeah.
So he said sometimes you can get in flow and like in the zone just by doing that, if you believe in what the end product is all about.
Yeah.
As opposed to just doing it for you.
Yeah, because then that's almost you're part of a mission then. And I think if you naturally then, because I talk a lot about knowing your love language, and if you acts of kindness or helping or being of service to somebody, if that's of high value to you, then that's going to be one of your drivers, right, to actually work collaboratively with people. Then yeah, that's going to be key. And so it's knowing yourself again. It's back to your voice. It's who are you, what's your driver, and then being able to align with that, to kind of create that formula of flow. I mean, I read a lot about flow. It fascinates me from like a neurological standpoint, but also quite a spiritual one too, because it can feel like time just stands still.
Yeah. It's difficult to get into it sometimes, but again, another guy that I'm really into, Derek Sivers, who I think I've told you about this. He talks about when he's just not in the mood, he'll do really boring, mundane things. Like if he's not in the mood to be creative, he'll do like the dishes, he'll do housework, because well, that needs to be done anyway. So he might as well do it when he's not feeling creative. Yeah. And then once that's done, then he can go back to being creative. And
yeah.
A clever way of doing it. So if you're not feeling creative, do the dishes.
Top tip, you heard it here first.
Or cut the lawn, and that actually works for me. I normally don't like doing it, but when I cut the lawn or doing the dishes.
I think there's something energetic about it, isn't it? Because it's still moving your body. It's still kind of doing some kind of task. And then that kind of lifts you anyway, because you feel like you've achieved something as well. So it's almost like you've got that out the way. So then you've like kind of cleared that energy. So then you're ready to start something creative potentially. So yeah,
instead of just sitting there
procrastinating or forcing it, like sitting in front of a white sheet of paper, or a blinking screen with the cursor. So yeah, no, I love that. I think that's the thing with flow state. And again, it's gonna, how everybody gets into that will be different for everybody. And it's being able to be playful with that, to know that you know, because for some people they may think flow state, what is this? But I think most creative people get into that flow state when you just feel like you're lost in time, like it's almost time freezes and you're just in your little bubble. That's how I describe it.
Yeah. So we were talking about that before as well, with my kids not having any concept of time. Definitely my kids don't, and I'm usually a pretty laid back guy, but there's one thing, like, I don't like to be late. I like to be on time, and I'm pretty good at guessing how long it's going to take to get them ready. Like literally from the moment I say, right, we're leaving now, to get off the sofa, put their shoes on, get out the flat and off somewhere. And I know it's going to take longer than it really should, but yeah, they're just, once they're into something, they're just so into it. And on the one hand, I don't want that to stop because they're so into it. I want them to have that time to be creative. But yeah, that's where the tension is, I suppose.
Well, yeah, it is. But I think that's, you know, for us to be fully in the moment. And I think, you know, in the way that society is structured, isn't it? It's like, you know, that's why we have like bus timetables and like meetings booked for certain times, and like there's got to be some sense of order. But I think,
yeah, you need some sort of structure.
Yeah, you need some sense of order. I always like the phrase, for me, I like a framework within which to play, because I need freedom. Otherwise I feel very hemmed in. So I need to have a space to play with. But I think at the same time there is some structure needed. But what was interesting from what you said is, I think when we're really small, when we're really little, that is when we are at our most instinctual. And so if you are in the midst of something where you are really in that flow state or really enjoying what you're doing, it's like, well, actually, what if you gave yourself full permission to stay there and not to, oh, I have to stop for my tea because it's 5 o'clock or whatever that is. Do you know what I mean? To kind of give yourself that permission to carry that through, if that's where you're at.
Yeah, no, talk about quite a bit in the past. I've talked about permission to pause, but I think permission to play, that's a new one. Give yourself permission.
Oh, permission to play. Yeah.
Give me 3 word slogans. Like, well, actually, on that, like, obviously, it's nothing like James Victore. I mean, he's a proper
inspired by him, though. So
James Victore, I had already been scribbling down some like thoughts and phrases for a while, and so I went through a phase of posting some stuff on Instagram. I mean, they're just plain black and white. But it's just me scribbling some thoughts on there. But I have signed it, everyone. It's inspired by James Victore. I thought, I'll just get it out there. I'll just, these, like, instead of just being written down in my notepad, I'll just put them out there, and some people seem to like them, you know, and they seem to have got something out of it, and it felt good to get it out, you know. And every one of those is going to be a chapter in my book, Christine.
You see, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. But why not? Like, I think that's the wonderful thing about kind of just being playful. Like, you don't know where it's going to lead. I think for me, you know, my kind of understanding of, yes, okay, more spirituality, but in the way in which our minds work and our bodies work and energetically how we're put together, is that there has to be that contrast. So, you know, the yin and yang, the light and dark, the constructed and the openness, it's got to be balanced. And I think sometimes it swings from one way to the other, but that's kind of how we move forward and evolve. And so who knows, like you say, rather than that just being, you know, left in your notebook, I wonder just how many people, and I loved what you did because it was just so simple. And so I think these are all reminders. And like we said about this book, that I know that I'm going to go back to this book because it is healthy reminders of like, oh yeah, you know, like take action. Like, yeah, sometimes we need that. And I was joking at the top of this that it's like a loving truth bitch slap. Because it comes from a place of love, but it is that, and we all need that sometimes, because we can take things so seriously that we can kind of put so much pressure on ourselves and say, oh, we should be doing that and we should be doing that. And it's like, why? You know, one of his chapters in here, isn't it, is there are no rules, only the ones we set ourselves.
Yeah. No, it's kind of, he does kind of say that. I think at the beginning he talks about it's kind of going to be kind of fatherly advice, but
Yeah.
it says here, full of stern, funny, and fatherly advice.
Yeah.
Feck Perfuction tells you things you don't want to hear in a way you want to hear them.
Hence the truth bitch slap.
It's your guide, your coach, and your cheerleader. I think that's
Yes.
like he's doing it, because he wants you to be
It's for your
successful.
own good kind of thing. It's like, here, take this. It's for your own good. It's going to hurt, but it's for your own good. I think that's the thing. I work with a coach in the US, Stacey Hartman, and in fact, we've told her this. She needs to put this on some merchandise, because we all like hashtag truth bitch slap, because we'll be in a Zoom group call and she will administer a truth bitch slap. And sometimes we'll go on going, Stacey, I need a truth bitch slap. Can you give it me? Because I think we know, and the very moment that you know that you need it, you know then that you're getting in your own way.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I quite like that. I mean, I mentioned him at the start, like Michael Owen. He's pretty good at do that. It's just like, give me a few of those, and I'm like, I needed that actually. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, but people, your friends are people who know you, but they're looking out for you. But often it's like, you need to get out your own way. Like, you know what you need to do. And often it can be the littlest things, can't it? Just to trigger you to kind of just, stop telling yourself a story. And I think that's half the things. We tell ourselves stories of what we can and can't do.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot about that, about the, well, you talked about the no rules, but it talks about the, getting in your own way. And that's usually the thing. Most people don't start something because they talk themselves out of it. There's a bit in it where he talks about people starting by stopping. So they've already jumped ahead and they've already talked themselves out of it. But sometimes you just gotta start. Yeah,
I like, and that's why, Feck Perfuction, and like the very page that he's put is like a big scribble. Feck it. And I just really like the whole thing of taking big, bold, imperfect action, because I think a lot of what I hear, and God, this happens for me, and that's why I've got to remind myself of just, JFDI, because we can very quickly move into comparanoia.
Oh, that's comparanoia. I've not heard that before.
Paranoia. Oh yeah. Hashtag comparanoia. So because, and like for me as a coach, for example, I think, you tend to follow lots of other coaches and see what they're doing. And then suddenly, before you know it, you're distracted and you're comparing yourself and then being paranoid about, what you should be doing. And the irony is, and the reminder for me in this book, is to be me. Don't have to be anybody else. Don't have to do anything like any other coaches do. Like whatever's on my heart and what I enjoy, showing up fully in that, not to be attached to any outcome, not to want external approval from anybody else, but just to be.
Yeah.
And I think we can all, that's great advice, I think, for us all, just to stop the comparanoia.
Yeah, no, that's good. But I mean, even those little, mostly 3-word kind of things I was putting out, I mean, they're so basic. I mean, there's no real sort of design quality to them all. It's just kind of scribbles. But there was a brief moment where I thought, well, because I've been wanting to do something like that. Like, some people have really beautiful style stuff, and it's like, I'm not a designer. Like, I can't do it, but I can. But those words are mine. They're unique to mine, and I'm good at taking photos. I'm good at writing quite succinct kind of slogans and words that seem to resonate with people. So I thought, fucking, I'll just get it out, because I could have not put that out. And what's the downside of doing it?
Well, that's the other thing, because we prejudge, and I think that's where the comparanoia comes in as well, because the paranoia of around, oh, well, what are people think? I hear that a lot. What are people going to think? What are people going to say? And it's like, do you care? Why? Like, what's, and if someone does say something, is your heart going to stop? Are you going to burst into flames? No.
Yeah. I think on that though, it is, obviously if you are doing something, you are putting yourself out there, and you do risk criticism. That there's always that chance. So you've got to be prepared for that, I suppose.
You do. But then I think a lot of this is, to feel the fear and do it anyway, which is like a well-known saying, that actually you don't get to grow new layers of skin unless you're out in the game, unless you're step out of your comfort zone. And then you realize that, well, actually, okay, so people are going to comment. Yeah. So what? And it almost strengthens you to kind of be more strong and resilient, because even if people do comment, it's like, well, that's their opinion and they're entitled to it. I don't have to listen to it. There's my choice.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think most people are too busy with their own stuff anyway. Like, they're not, like, the people who are interested will find it, and I can probably count on one hand, two hands, how many people who've like really like been critical of anything I've done. Like, I mean, they might, like, in secret or by my back, that I can't control that, but publicly.
No, I mean, I would say, like, now I've been doing my Tuesday lives for year and a half or whatever. I've not, well, again, not to my knowledge, I've not received any derogatory comments. And actually, I've thought about, even if I was, then that says more about them than it does about me. Because actually it takes a lot more effort to go on and say something and be derogatory than it is just to pass it, swipe it on by, press stop, whatever, Yeah.
But the trick is, but even, again, like, even after lots of practice of putting stuff out there, it's still, no one likes to be
still human.
We're all human. So it's just, trying to, exactly, you just ignoring it, or just
well, I think that, and this is the other thing that James talks about, which is being purposeful, of like, actually, if it's on your heart, what's your intention behind putting it out? And as long as you're being true to that, then everyone can have an opinion, but you get to choose whether you take that to heart or not. And I think I'm a huge Brené Brown fan, and she talks about the amount of people that she respects, i.e. she will take criticism from. She's actually got like a tiny piece of paper that she carries around with her in her purse, apparently, with the names of the people who she cares what they think. And everybody else whose name is not on that piece of paper, she's like, you can have your opinion, but actually, unless you're in the arena, i.e. unless you're out there as well, then I don't want to know. Because people can all throw eggs and crap at you from the stalls, but are they out there? Are they actually standing up and speaking? If they're not, then it's like, I'm not even gonna entertain your response.
You might have seen it, this great short little it's a talk that she gave. It's on Netflix, and she talks and because I'd heard a lot about her, but I didn't really know much about her. Then I watched it, and I was actually surprised how tough she is.
She is.
She's a real badass, like, doesn't she? She's like, no nonsense, not taking any shit from people.
Yeah, she's another Texan, but what I love about her, I mean, she's a researcher. She researches vulnerability and shame, and so she's PhD, she's doctor, but
she had to live it as well. That's because when she a famous TED talk. Like, how she's saying how scared she was.
She got some awful comments about her weight, about like lots of different things, and I think she went into hiding. I think she had a small breakdown after she when it went live. And so what I love about her, though, is her authenticity and her vulnerability, but she's funny. She's very wise, but she's also hilariously funny, which is a great combination.
Definitely recommend watching that if anyone's got
for sure. Check out Brené Brown.
She's obviously got the TED video, but has she got lots of books out, or is it?
She's got loads of books, so Daring Greatly is a fantastic book. I may forget all of them, but we can put some links in maybe to some of her other books, but I would highly recommend. There's also, she does a great podcast called Unlocking Us, and she interviews some amazing people, and it's just a really lovely thing to listen to, because it's very conversational, it's not too heavy, so it's great.
Okay, cool.
So what's the next chapter? Because we've got
go on.
Structure.
I was just going to say, so I mean, we talked about it before, but he starts, I mean, I think at the beginning of the book, he's talking about as children, we've mentioned this before, children were completely free. We can draw and dream and invent imaginary worlds, even imaginary friends. And this gift of creativity makes us powerful, but also awkward, weird, and vulnerable. And at some point, and for various reasons, our weirdness becomes less an asset than a target. We learn to hide our great and our goofy qualities in order to dodge criticism and assimilate. We choose not to stand out or act on our creativity. We take the accepted adult route, content to be paid for learning rote skills and showing up on time. In this reality, choosing to accept our weirdness, invent our own future, and live in a purpose-driven life becomes a dangerous idea. It's dangerous because it lets the creative beast out of its cage and allows us to see that we are capable of what we are capable of without seeking permission or approval. Dangerous because it opens up the possibility that the life you live in may not actually be yours, but a template assigned to you by scared and unimaginative people.
I love that.
These are dangerous ideas because they challenge your ego, your definition of normal, your crappy job, and your comfort zone. These are dangerous ideas on creativity and life.
Whoosh. Boom. Mic drop. No, it's true. I love that of like because it talks about that a lot of people's people are all the same, and this mimicry of almost, you know, these shared limiting beliefs that get bounded out around, like money doesn't grow on trees, and you can't it's harder to get another job if you leave what one you've already got, and like all of these things that just people just hear, consume, and then regurgitate and repeat out and they don't stop to think, is that even true? It's not true. And the thing is, it can be really limiting for a lot of people. And so it's something that I'm very, very passionate about, to kind of watch your language, like watch what you come out and say, because that has real effect on people. And we're all advice givers, aren't we?
Yeah, everyone's good at giving advice to other people and not so good at taking their own advice.
Yeah, but I think you're back to with that comment about the herd. Because I think when we're in the herd, then we're in a social constructed, like, oh, you can do that and you can't do that. Like, that's okay, that's not okay. And it's almost like this shared limiting belief to kind of, I don't know, almost kind of hold you in. Like, it's almost the way that society is ran, it's controlled. So like, don't step out of line. I'm kind of painting the picture of like Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Or the Truman Show. But it is, sometimes it's that conditioning. We all do have an element of social conditioning that you kind of think, oh, well, what can I do that? And it's like, yeah, you can do anything. Yeah. You choose, but everything has a consequence. Yes. You know, you can choose to break a law, but there's a consequence to meet with that. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose, like, I mean, we all live on the same planet, but like every country, every religion, every town, village, city, family has their own customs and cultures about how to do things. So it just shows that there's no one way of behaving and living your life. So just because this is the way things have always been done, doesn't mean they've got to always be done the same way in the future. Yeah. Actually, years ago, I remember reading a definition of culture, which I thought was a pretty good one, and it was like, culture it's the way we do things around here. I thought that was quite a good one, because it's true, like, and that can be a positive and a negative. You know, you can celebrate the culture that you've got here, but doesn't mean you've only got to stick to that. You know, that's why when you travel and you meet new people and you see a different way of living, and
it literally expands your thinking.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that you know, there's lots of really nice, well-meaning people, but if they've never moved away and they've only ever lived where they've lived and they've only ever done the job that they've done, they have quite a limited view of the world, as opposed to you can tell the people who've traveled or who've read lots of books, or, you know, that have been open to new ideas and stuff, have a total different perspective on life in the world. So
no, I think you're right. And straight away, as you said that, I think the one of the things that is clear about people who have read a lot more, travelled and gone outside of their norm kind of thing, or their local area, is actually they tend to have a greater level of trust and a sense of freedom. Those that live within the constraints are actually more fearful and less trusting. I always remember, and I can't remember whether I mentioned this last time, and stop me if I did, because I can't remember. I think I did speak about a neighbour of mine, well, a neighbour of my dad's actually, had asked me, I think part of my trip, my planned trip was to India. And so I'd shared with her that I was, that I was going to go to India. And she gasped and went, "You can't go there on your own. It's dangerous." And I went, "Really? Have you been?" And she, because I think I asked her, first of all, like, "How do you know?" And she said, "Well, the news says there's rapes and they're not good with women and all of this news, right?" And so I said, "Oh, okay. Have you been?" She went, "Well, no," as if like, "Of course I haven't been to India." And I said, so how do you know? Are you trusting what the media says? Because that's only one side. And I did, in fact, like ages after I'd come back, because actually I saw the greatest level of kindness in India. And I part of my travel was to poorer countries because I was really intrigued about places that actually were more culturally rich. And I think then it's been written about that generally cultures and countries that have less, that are poorer, are actually a lot more generous and a lot kinder and more giving because they have less.
Yeah. And
that was definitely my understanding. But I could have listened to my dad's friend and gone, "You're right, it's too dangerous. I won't go." But then I would have not experienced everything that I did do in India, which would have been a crying shame.
Yeah, exactly. The experiences that you had there, the amazing experiences, could have just been quashed straight away.
Yeah.
And I think that does happen, unfortunately, with a lot of people, when the people around them just say, especially it's like, who do you think you are, and kind of get back in your box and kind of,
don't step out of line.
That's not what we do around here. That's not the way things are done around here.
Yeah, you can't do that. That's, it's almost like that doesn't happen. And again, this is back to this projection piece, because when people are small-minded and closed-minded, then they're very much in a scarcity mindset of oh, don't rock the boat, like it's not great, but it's fine what we have. Like, don't dare to dream. And it's very constrictive and limiting. And let's face it, I mean, like, COVID's just one of those proof in the pudding, right? Nobody predicted this, but here we are. And it's forced us all to look at things more creatively, to be adapting and to co-create with different people and to look for different ways, because that is how we evolve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the world that we thought we knew, it's gone, isn't it?
Well, it is, but then you kind of think, and a lot of people are fixated on what we've lost and what's not, but I've equally seen people go, but yeah, look what we've gained. Yeah, look what we now see as as people then being on this place pause, they've reflected on, actually, what is it that I want to create in the world, and how do I want to live? And actually, oh my God, I've been on this hamster wheel for years and I didn't even realize I was.
Yeah. I know, I know not everyone can start a new hobby or start a new business or do all these things that they've always wanted to do, but a lot of people can, and if you're on furlough, some people are on furlough and they're still getting paid. Some people are still getting paid full salaries. Some people are getting 80% salaries, and they're not having to work, and they've got loads of free time. Like, what are you going to do with that free time? That's hard for a lot of people, because they've never had that before. They've always just done what they've been told to do, or they've got that set routine. Really questioned it before, so it's difficult for people to readjust. But
it is, and I think a lot of the time, unfortunately, as human beings, we need to be cracked open. we need often that shock, that truth bitch slap, that crisis, something to happen to make us awaken to new possibilities, and that's how we do open up new chapters. And I think I mentioned, I very much live my life in chapters now. It never used to be that way. I was just on this long road and now it's like, no, I want to get to the end of my life and feel like I've truly lived, like I've kind of pushed the edges and felt the edges. And I think the big bit about within this book that he talks about, James, is about this whole, the way we perceive failure. And I think there's more conversations being had, isn't it, about, and again, in the school system, we're so transfixed on right and wrong, good and bad, like knowing the answer, having certainty.
Yeah.
And I think within creativity, just knowing that it's okay not to know.
Yeah, yeah. He talks about that about saying it's learn to say you don't know, and that's a good reminder, because don't feel like you've always got to have the answer. Especially when you're being creative, because that's where the creativity comes from, for your experimentation, just trying new things and starting something new and seeing what comes as a result of it.
When you think of so many accidental creations like Coca-Cola, do you know what I mean? Or any like, God, there's so many examples.
Of experiments, exactly.
Yeah, like things that have gone wrong, but as a result, they've discovered something else. I mean, there's just so many of them. I know he gives an example, I can't remember which chapter it is, about back in the day, like computers in every home, and people going, no, like that's balderdash. But like, look at everything now. I mean, now we're carrying around computers in our pockets, for God's sake.
Yeah. The thought, exactly. That'll never work.
That'll never work. And I think it almost like says that if someone says that to you, then that's almost gonna, I must be on the right lines then. Often, because if it is something so new, then it can be people locked into this safer way of working, safer way of viewing the world, and they don't perhaps like anything new. Is scary to some people. Yeah,
I think I'm not saying, I like to think of myself as a bit of an artist, right? A bit of an entrepreneurial artist, right? I like being on the edges a little bit, right? I like being slightly outside the mainstream, but I think it's good to know what the rules are, because then you can bend the rules a little bit without breaking. Yeah. So I think especially like there's a lot of artists as well, like famous artists who they train the correct way, the classical way, and they master that first, and then they invent their own style, which is completely breaks the rules, but they know how to do the fundamentals really, really well, and then they can play outside the rules. So I think that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think because that's why they say, is that it's still like an artist as well. It's like along those same lines, that there's nothing everything's a rehash of a rehash of a rehash. So it is to know, like you say, the parameters, and that's again that framework.
Yeah.
And then the play part is that co-creation and that creating something that potentially not yet exist. But I think, like to your point, you've got to kind of know some starting places, and then that's kind of your markers to know roughly where you are, what you're doing.
Yeah, but I've always been pretty good at knowing when to rein it in and not go too far. Like.
But then sometimes you think, I wonder what if I did.
Yeah.
It's like all a bit of an experiment, but again, it's that's why everybody's so different in how much you're willing to risk. And I think sometimes, that's why they say fortune favors the bold. If you can kind of bring an element of boldness into your work, it's not for everybody, and often you can't do that all the time. But knowing that you can tap into that boldness if you so wish.
Yeah.
Then why not? I'm always because one of the other things that he talks about, so after like I don't know, he talks about the wrongest answer. The wrongest answer, where it's just this whole thing. And art for me is specifically about self-expression, and not you can't, for me, it's not about good art or bad art. It's just self-expression. And it's supposed to evoke an emotion of some kind. And I think, again, we're transfixed by this need to be right. And it's funny, one of the things I wanted to add, so one of, I can't remember whether I mentioned this before, but I do an energy leadership assessment with my clients. So it's a first bit of how I work with people, because it's an insight tool where it really looks at your subconscious beliefs, how you see yourself and how you see the world around you. So it's really quite a deeply insightful assessment where you get a full report and profile. And it doesn't serve to label anybody, but it's basically a point of exploration. And so to be able to kind of help somebody explore this, it's so funny that because it's an assessment and you get results, what's really interesting that every client, without any exception that I've worked with, have gone, did I get it right? Did I do it right?
Did I do it right?
But, you know, in that same, it's like, well, actually, there's no right or wrong. Like, we're so transfixed in, like, you know, having, and you kind of almost think, like, what if I stretched it either way? Like, what's, again, this is something so subconscious to us because we're so programmed to believe that maybe a high score is good and a low score is bad, or vice versa, whatever you're looking at. So we look at something and judge it, and then that informs how we feel and then what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's even to question those things at a very basic level that actually unlocks a lot of people's you know, the way that they're seeing things. They're like, oh my, I didn't even know I had this programming. It's like, well, we all do.
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. I also love the simplicity of the way that he's kind of put each of the chapters. So it talks about your voice, then he talks about fear and all of the component parts of fear, then starting something, then taking action, then your habits on those actions, and then that purpose. So he's grounded you back into the purpose at the end. I think something else around the fear of being wrong, the fear of mixing it up. Where's fear played a part for you in as an entrepreneur?
Me? Oh, bloody hell, you're putting us on the spot here.
I just thought I'd mix it up a bit.
I don't know. I mean, again, it's probably definitely when I first started out, it was like, what would other people think, or kind of like, because it was not. I didn't really know anyone that was self-employed, or I mean, I suppose it was a bit different because I'd spent a long time helping other people start their own business. So I was working in jobs that were giving help and advice and a bit of funding and stuff. So I'd maneuvered myself into those roles because I was drawn to that and I wanted, right? But still, that was my personal experience of it. So to me, it wasn't such a big thing to start my own business. But people around me, like my family and, you know, of course, friends and stuff, it was like, well, that's a bit of a risk, like starting your own. And to me, it wasn't. But so I probably put it off quite a while. And then when I did it, no one died. Everything was fine.
You didn't burst into flames.
I did some cool stuff. I was happy doing what I was doing. Like, yeah, like great. Much happier doing that. So and he talks a lot about that, about your inner critic and holding yourself back. And I suppose even now, like sometimes I have to, even though I've done lots of great things, I have to remind myself, look at all this stuff I've done. Like every time I decide I'm going to do something and put everything into it, it works. Yeah. It's usually really good. So it gets easier. You know, you just got to. Yeah. I think you just trust your gut and just go with it. But starting is always difficult. Even for James Victore and other like great people, they say getting started is the hardest bit.
Yeah, because I think that's what I love about what he says in this, that he normalizes that of course it's hard for us all, because I think often we look at people who've already made it, who've already kind of like, oh, it's easy for them because da 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 da. But what they don't see is all of the years preparation that's led up to that point. Yeah. And that, you know, they may see a very confident front, but they don't see what's behind the scenes. Yeah. And I think for many people it is this fear of failure that is just endemic in again, it's that judgment, that paranoia. What will people say? What will people think? Or who am I? Imposter syndrome is huge for a lot of people. And I mean, I know for me, again, I've kind of had imposter syndrome of like, who cares what I've got to say? You know, like, who am I to say, you know, yada yada. But then what drives me and what gets me out of fear is to come back to my purpose, to ground back into my why of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah. And also for me as a coach, I then think about the people that I've helped, the people that actually have really got something out of us working together. And I know, like I've shared with you before, like I kind of call my coaching sessions, you know, the conduit of co-creation, because it is a co-creative way of working. I'm not giving my client all the answers. We're going on a discovery. We're going on a exploration together, and looking under things and looking around corners and exploring it. And it's fun, as well as it sometimes being a little uncomfortable. But that's necessary to be able to blast through some of these limiting beliefs, or, you know, to fully explore. And I think if you've got somebody like a trusted guide to help you get through those, that actually you can look back and think, yeah, what was I even scared of? Yeah.
I think, you know, finding your purpose, a lot of people struggle with that, like knowing what their purpose is, because they've never had to do that before. I mean, even me, like, you know, I've been doing a lot of deep thinking this year about is my purpose still the same as it was when I first started and stuff. And, you know, again, off the back of reading this book, one of the things that I put on that Instagram was I put 3 C's, like connectivity, collaborating, contributing. Things, and like for me, it is that sort of connection. So online, offline, bringing people together, creating opportunities for people to learn and share and inspire each other through the events. Like Startup Week is the biggest way I can do that. But online, through videos, through podcasts, through one-to-one conversations. So, and yeah, being able to draw in people and then get me or them to share their knowledge with others. That's what I'm trying to do.
I love that, because it sounds to me it's guiding principles. You know, it's not set in stone. It's just that's primarily.
It doesn't really matter what the medium is, whether it's a physical event or a video or a podcast or face to face. So
gives you like a pointer, because then you can kind of say, okay, how can I connect more? How can I contribute? And then that kind of gives you an expansive base to create from. And I think what's wonderful about that is that it's not limiting in any way, because it constantly feeds you to then co-create in different ways. Like, you're probably never going to run out of ideas.
No, exactly. Well, even the music, and when I was DJing, that's what it was all about. It was like, I think I said before as well, that for me, my hero DJs were the ones, it was less about, they weren't like the superstar DJ where all the focus was on them. The focus was on the clubbers. It was the vibe and the atmosphere that they were creating in that room. And a lot of the really famous DJs in the like 70s would be in darkness, like you wouldn't even see them. They're setting the mood. But that kind of
so being of service to their people, not just it's all about them, but kind of it's I love music as a metaphor for that, because it is a sharing of vibration. It's a sharing of communication. And what I love about music is that it cuts through like all social constructs, all races, all denominations, like everybody, you know. And again, that's what I particularly loved about Elements of Travel, and why I still want to go to a ton of places that have got different music, because it's like you could all be from different places, but you're all dancing, you're all enjoying the music, because that's what it is to be human, that you're responding to that vibration, to that energy.
That's what appeals to me about like acid house and dance music, is like that
high energy,
just that high energy, but like we're all, because it's like house music's kind of about the same BPM as your heartbeat, or slightly faster. That's kind of where it comes from.
I didn't know that.
But then everyone's like all together.
It's like metronomes.
Yeah,
they all start coherence.
The same rhythm, and when you get it right, it's an amazing thing when everybody's.
Because that is the energy in the room. You can feel it. You can viscerally feel it, and that's the wonderful thing, that even then that's in states, isn't it? You can create that state. We still need to create Daybreakers in Newcastle, by the way. That's still noted.
Okay, we heard it here first. Like you don't even need alcohol or any other substance to enjoy dancing. You can,
high on your own supply. Definitely. Well, that brings us through to, I just wanted to add in this beautiful picture of shoulda, woulda, coulda, which I think at the end of the day, I think we did talk about last time when we were talking about The Alchemist.
The song
Shoulda,
woulda, coulda.
woulda, coulda. But it, yeah, I think there is a song. Is it Beverly Knight?
I think it is.
Anyway. I knew it was the recesses of my mind. But yeah, he talks about shoulda, woulda, coulda, which is kind of basically what legacy are you gonna leave behind you? Like, are you gonna say, oh, I never tried because I was too scared? Like, is that really what you want to have on your epitaph? Yeah. No.
I've heard that quite a few times before, that they've done studies where when people, sounds a bit morbid, but on people's deathbed, like
yeah. Oh, there's a book, isn't there? The palliative care nurse did. Yeah,
and people regretting things that
the 10 regrets of the dying. Yeah, there is. I think the top one is that they didn't live to their full potential. I think that's the top one, that they were so bothered about upsetting somebody else or whatever that was, that they ended up not living their true life. And you just think, you get this one precious life. Are you really going to live it for somebody else? I mean, that's the recipe for resentment and anger,
Nobody wants to be told, or to find out, I never lived my life because of you.
Well, no, exactly. Can you imagine being told that on your deathbed? And probably the other person was going, what are you talking about? You could have done that. I would have been fine with you doing that. But if you don't ask, you don't get. Shy Bones get knee gravy. I think we should try and drop that into every single book review.
Okay.
I wonder if there's a hashtag get knee gravy.
Get knee gravy.
Yeah, you don't ask, you don't get. Shy Ben's get knee gravy. That's it, specifically.
Is that a Sunderland thing? Because it's Shy Ben.
Is it?
It's Shy Ben's getting out.
Getting out. Oh, well, that too. I just call it gravy.
Same thing. I understand.
I'm a gravy girl. Now it's good too.
like gravy on chips.
Yeah, wet chips.
That's vinegar, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what some Southerner told me. For any Southerners watching, that it was this whole thing about the Northern Divide of like, you put gravy on chips, and you're like, yeah. What else do you put on chips?
Good, just tastes good. You're making me hungry now.
I know, my stomach's rumbling. So to wrap up, because I know we've been on a while, and for those who are still watching when this gets uploaded, well done. You win a prize. What prize are they going to win, Paul?
I don't know yet. A fake mustache or something.
A fake James Victore mustache. I love that. Absolutely. So I think towards the end of the book talks about purpose, and I know you touched upon it before. I think one of the things, it was actually quite a strong visual image that I'm trying to find. I think it was before purpose, actually. This is about, what is it? Oh yeah, the second arrow. Shit happens. That's the first arrow. And then the second arrow is basically where we berate ourselves. And that's the picture. So like the first arrow being a mistake or something happening that we don't want it to happen. But then the second arrow is very much around us saying, oh, you're so stupid. Like, why did you do that? Or, and I think that's something we've touched on this before, the inner critic that we have. And I know there was a guy that I tagged you into, back to a music reference, Jamie Cato, who was one of the musicians from Faithless, who now works and trains and does a lot of an amazing work in self-development field. Yeah. He came up with this amazing analogy around headfuck FM. And I just love the whole premise, because for me, I call it my stinking thinking. So that inner critic that basically berates me or, criticizes me constantly, that actually talks about, it's just this radio station that's on permanently, that is inhabited by different DJs, and you believe that those DJs are you because they use your voice, but they're not. They're just part of Headfuck FM. And you can choose to change the station, basically.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, I know we talked a bit about Stoicism, that I've been getting quite into that. So he talks about life happens and we react, but how we react is a choice. That's a key thing about Stoicism, is you can't control everything. You can't control what other people do or how they behave or what happens in the world, but the one thing you can control is how you respond. So yeah, it's always a choice how you react to something that happens, and yeah, things will go wrong, but like, why beat yourself up over it again and again? If you make a mistake, then just accept it, own it, and to learn from it. I think that's a key thing, to learn from it and not make the same mistake.
It's definitely something I practice, because I think we're all wired to kind of like, you beat yourself up over the head and then you get all stressed, and it's like, well, why would you do that to yourself? Like, you wouldn't probably do that to another person, so why would you do it to yourself? So I talk to people about these so there's 10 disciplines of kind of energetic mastery, and the first 4 is about awareness. So being aware, observing what's going on. So if you're being triggered by somebody or something, feel that trigger come up. So whether it's you feel angry at yourself or angry at another, or somebody's kind of created that feeling within you, be aware that it's here and call it out and go, oh, I appear to be having a very angry reaction to this. and then it's almost like the talking hand, like, oh, you appear to be a little bit angry. Well, yes, I am. And just to create space between you and it. And I think then to have acceptance. So, okay, it's completely natural that I'm having this reaction, but this is all this precursor to then shifting through to conscious choice to, hold on, I get to decide how I respond to this. Is it worth me responding? Do I need to? And then it's to trust the process. And so that's the first 4 of 10 steps that I work through with people. And even just that for me helps me kind of go, oh yeah, that's happening. So what? Now what?
That's good. So what, now what? Yeah.
Another chapter for your book.
Your book. When you write your book, I'll tell you what, you can write a foreword in my book and I'll write one in your book.
All right, okay, deal.
I'll provide some quotes or something. Yeah, we can quote from each other.
Oh, fine. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, but it is a great book. Like I say, it's short chapters, usually only 1 or 2 pages long. Looks great. Nice gift for anyone, nice gift for yourself. Encourage anyone to read it. And yeah, the last thing, I guess, is, what does it say there? Now go and give him hell.
That's a call to action right there. Give him hell. Yeah, just
get it out there. Exactly.
I feel like we should maybe wearing like a cowboy hat or something, but anyway. Oh, we could have been prepared with false tashes.
Not quite long enough yet. But...
No, mine's not either. Oh well, that's been fun as ever, Paul. Which book are we gonna review next?
No, we'll have to think, because I know we have read some similar books, but I'm not sure what we've both read or what we've. Maybe I need to lend you a book, or you need to lend me a book.
Yeah, we can do a swapsy. Absolutely. Well, no, there's so many good ones out there. I mean, and especially I think on these themes of entrepreneurship, of around fear and success and taking action and habits and stuff. And
yeah,
I guess what's wonderful about all of this is that everyone's going to take something different away from these books, because we're all different and we should celebrate that. And it's finding your own flow, isn't there? There's not just one way to do things.
Yeah, I know. That's what I think I said to you this after I read it, or maybe I posted it online. I think a lot of, I think it's primarily aimed at people who haven't started something yet. But actually, if you have already started something, it's a really good reminder.
It's a really good. It's a truth bitch slap. It's a book full of truth bitch slaps.
Now I read it, it was like, yeah, I was doing that, and I just need to get back to doing that. I've kind of.
Well, we fall off the wagon, don't we? And again, it's just like, oh, hello, old friend. Hello, old belief. Fancy seeing you here again. And then you just laugh about it and go, oh, well, I'll just try again. And I think it's like it's a practice. Yeah. That you can do. And so James just helps inject a bit of comedy and lightheartedness into it, which I think, God, we can't just get enough of.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Great. All right, cool. Lovely talking to you, always.
You too.
All right, okay.
Catch you later.
Later. Bye.